be too deep. I think I'm dying here, man.
Welcome to the 3B Video Deep Cut Podcast.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
Yo, it's fun.
All right, welcome back to the Deep Cut Podcast with your hosts, Rotten Roger DeMarco and...
your favorite high-tech low-life evil.
Back in the back room again. Here we go. Another wonderful podcast, but this week we're doing something a little bit different. We've been on this trend of just covering specific films, and we're getting into the swing of how we're going to handle these hour-long podcasts. Well, this week we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing 20 influential horror film scenes. Evil has a list of 10. I have a list of 10. We did not compare lists, so we're going to go through these scenes and see what...
These are personal influencers apiece, so they're not like the standard bearer 10 most influential scenes. They're just 10 that Raj picked that are personal to him and 10 that I picked that are to me.
Absolutely. So we're going to run through them and we'll talk about each one of the scenes a little bit, and should be a good time. Because the thing that brought this on for me was, I don't know if you've seen, but In Search of Darkness 2 is coming out.
Because only In Search of Darkness could give you 4.5 something hours of a documentary and go, but wait, I know there's plenty still to say.
But wait, there's more. And that documentary is fantastic, but I do feel like it covered a lot of the stuff that the generic horror audience is already well versed in. So I tried to pick...
It covered all the required reading stuff. So.
Right. I tried to pick some stuff that's a little bit different in my 10 influential scenes. And these are things that have a personal bearing on me. So it's not necessarily... Because we discussed earlier, we had kind of discussed if we wanted to do like 20 scary scenes, or if it was just scenes that influenced us, whether that means that they did scare us in some capacity.
That was my fuck up, because that's what I thought you said initially was, come up with 10 scenes that personally scared you. So I did that, and you're like, no, 10 that influenced you, and I'm like, shit. Well, we have another show banked on pure accident because I'm gonna save this list.
Right? Yeah. So we have a backup list. And you may notice we are sans Tech Man. This is just a 2-man gig this go around. So this should fly by pretty quickly. And if you're new to the podcast, thank you for joining us and listening to us ramble about things. And if you're Adam Green, what's up?
Hope you've enjoyed your night of binge watching our old shit.
Yeah, binge watch some new stuff. And if you're not Adam Green and you haven't binge watched any of our stuff, hope you do that.
Be like what we want Adam Green we think is just binge watch a ton of our shit.
Right. So I will start with the top of the list, or the bottom of the list, I suppose, whatever. And we'll briefly discuss this.
Also, side bit note before going in, I did not put mine in any kind of order, so these are just 10 in no particular order for me, so...
Gotcha. So our number one, which will be your last one, will not necessarily be a number one. It won't be a definitive scene, is what you're getting at.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, we don't play by the rules. We do what we want. So coming in at number 20 is Roger Turns Into a Zombie from 1978's Dawn of the Dead, the George Romero classic.
I don't know how you started. That's your 10. I don't know how that's not number one. That's kind of pretty defining.
Yeah, especially for me. For those of you who are new to the podcast, the name Roger DeMarco that I go by is because of the character Roger DeMarco in the original Dawn of the Dead. He is kind of my hero in this movie, in all cinema, I suppose, even though he doesn't last very long. But I think that this scene is a very important scene in horror history. you know, especially for the Romero trilogy. You've got this band of whatever you want to call them. They're on the run. They've taken over this mall. They're fortifying it. And Roger seems to always be like one step ahead. He always seems to be like the smartest one, the toughest one, the coolest one in the group. Until, yeah, exactly. Sight gag.
Yeah.
Until
works well.
Until he makes a mistake, and he is not long for this world, but he does manage to help the group until he can't help the group anymore. And even as a kid, him turning into a zombie was one of those things that every time I watched the movie, I was like, maybe it'll be different this time. Maybe he won't turn. You know what I mean? But it never changed.
Oh, that childhood innocence of being like, well, maybe this time it won't take effect.
Right. Maybe this time he'll be cool. It's a super quotable scene. Roger is a super quotable dude. I love this scene more than anything. Obviously, it had a very big effect on me. That's why I'm rotten Roger DeMarco. So that's my number 20.
That's your number 20.
I don't want to be walking around like that. Peter. Peter!
Yeah, I'm here, man.
Don't do it till you're sure I am coming back. I'm gonna try not to. I'm gonna try not to come back.
Man, for amusement's sake, this week I picked up some of that infamous Chick Seltzer White Claw stuff. Because I've got the Freddy Krueger knockoff shirt, so I was like, I'm going to try this stuff just for the novelty of it. And it's like, this is not good at all.
I've had one or two White Claws. My mother-in-law had some last 4th of July maybe, and it's literally like someone drank something fruity and then burped in your face.
I mean, I don't know where the alcohol is in it. It tastes like just seltzer water that somebody put into a can that had some mango in it at some point.
Right. Transported near mangoes.
Yeah. But my number 19, we'll try to keep these numbers going in order. My number 19 is the opening song sequence for Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare.
Ah, yeah.
Now, I like this enough. We did a music video on our channel using this song, but this was like as much as Dawkins was for Dream Warriors in Part 3, this one really also turned a different corner for me, being like, well, that's a pretty interesting song. I kind of like that, and that's the basis jump-off point from at that age, seeing it being like, okay, it went from he's still trying to be scary a little bit to like we fully, we're going down the road now of a whole different path for this movie. And I remember seeing that in the drive-in with my dad, and that scene popping up and being like, this is gonna be different. I'm gonna like this, but it's gonna be very different. And hence, it's just John Doe walking down the street, and it's like, well, I don't know, it's my like, okay, I can be okay with this series not being like totally freaked out by it, because I was probably way too young to be watching Freddy anyways.
Right.
Going to the drive-in.
We both were.
Yeah. But this is your introduction to Looney Tunes Freddy. So that duel at the same time, made it more child friendly of a horror flick.
Child palatable or whatever.
Yeah, and also opening up more musical tastes for me, which still is still 90% of where all my music comes from. Like, where'd you get this? Like, oh, these are all from these movies. Mm-hmm. Nothing I discover on my own anywhere else. So also, my introduction to the Goo Goo Dolls is this.
I was gonna say, made us fans of the Goo. You know we fuck with the goo.
Yeah, we fuck with the goo.
Absolutely. Man. So, yeah, and I totally get it because I was kind of in the same boat with that scene or with that movie in general, you know. You're talking right around the time of like T2 and
oh yeah.
You know, so them doing the cartoon body shape ripping through the dream world into reality, and right then and there you kind of know what you're getting into. Obviously he flies in on a broom and does the whole Wizard of Oz shtick and stuff, and a lot of people really hate on Freddy's Dead, but you and I are like right there in the forefront, like, you guys are wrong and let us tell you why, because it's fun as fuck.
It's just got some. I'm also a weird stickler for like I'm nostalgic for odd visuals. So him walking down the street, it's like these fall kind of, you know, half dead looking trees and shit. So hearing the song, seeing like those trees, it totally sets an entire mood up for me of like that time of year and that like particular time in my life. Like those years are very ingrained with like how certain things look. I'm very tied that way with like a lot of set decoration for particularly the Elm Street series, but a lot of outdoor stuff there. But just how things look filmed in 1991,
right?
Still resonate, and I can hear that song, I can see that scene, I can still go right back to where I was when I seen it.
Nothing wrong with having that one on the list because obviously we're influenced by it, like you said. We made a music video out of it. we enjoy it immensely.
Yes.
So my number 18 is Eddie Gets Got from 1988's The Blob remake. I did a video on this for Slasher Pepper. He did a series of one terrifying scene. And,
I remember that.
And this scene in particular has always stuck out to me. I love this movie. This was like one of the only things I asked for my birthday was a VHS copy of The Blob when I was a kid. And it was this scene in particular, you know, that lets you know this movie's not fucking around and kids are not off limits. And it does so in a extremely gory fashion, and it's like suspenseful, it's scary, it's cool, like it's everything that I want.
Child murder.
Yeah, and some child murder, you know. Yeah, you got to kill a kid. But I mean, I think that might have been short of another child death that is probably going to pop up on this list. You know, one of the most impactful child deaths on film that I've ever seen. And a lot of people are like anti-remake, but I'm not really the biggest 50s or 60s film fan, so I feel like
awesome
The Blob...
song.
Huh?
I think the best part of the original Blob is the song.
Right. And so, like, since I grew up on this version, I just think that this is one of the best movies ever made, and that scene cements it for me. It's so good. It's done so perfectly. It's just a very bothersome scene, but it doesn't like. It's not so shocking that it like pulls you out of the movie. It doesn't give you time to digest, no pun intended. It doesn't give you time to digest the horror because you got to just keep going with Meg and her little brother. So it had to make the list.
Yeah, I know that's a huge movie. That's a part of your DNA makeup. And I remember when that got announced by Shout Factory that they were doing an edition of that. I could not fucking send that link to you fast enough. And I think within like 20 minutes of me sending it, you always sent me back a message going, "I already ordered it."
Yep. Yeah, literally, you sent me the message, and I was like, "Babe, can I order this?" She's like, "Yep." Boop. Done.
That's just how that goes. All right. I'm already starting to be fucked up. Was it 17?
Yep, you're on 17
now. My number 17 scene is something we talked about super recently, in one of these podcasts, but I'm going to say the brain scan slow clap.
Aw, yeah. Nice.
The very scene at the end of this movie where Trickster goes from being, this villain of the film to now he's like, now you're in cahoots with him and you're fine with that. You're like, okay, we went on I put you through some absolute hell there, Michael, but we're cool now because now you're going to let me do this to your principal, and I feel it's going to be the most entertaining time of my life. Thank you very much, Michael.
And Edward Furlong totally gives him that creepy ass Pet Sematary 2 smile.
It says without saying it, enjoy this one. You're welcome.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Yeah, we can never say enough good things about Brain Scan, that's for sure.
You see that demeanor from Trickster goes up from like, impressive, thank you very much, and then he gets into character.
Mm-hmm.
And the music kicks in. You're like, all right, this would be a fun fucking ride to see go down. We never get to see, but man, it's just like just a fun way for that movie to wrap up. You're not sure what's reality and what's not, but that is just like, yeah. It's cool to be bad. Born to be bad.
Please give us Brain Scan 2 or Brain Scan 2021 somebody out there. I'll throw as much money as you as I can.
You think we could do that? You think we could talk T. Ryder Smith into putting the whole like get up on for like a one more time, like a photo op kind of deal?
Maybe we can get him to do a skit for the channel.
You give us a price, T. Ryder Smith, and we will make it.
Remix.
Hit up T. Ryder Smith. Let us know what he wants for a price, and we'll start a fundraiser right now for the Trickster Brain Scan skit short.
Yes, the crossover that we so desperately deserve.
Yes.
All right. So moving on to my number 16. This should come as no surprise to you. Is Stella's Sexual Electrocution from 1986's Slaughter High.
That is just hilarious. Like, I've only seen it a couple of times, but man, it does not leave you, and it is hysterical to watch somebody.
Oh yeah.
You hope he hit right at that moment when the jolt started kicking in, so you're not sure what's happening. That should just be framed on the wall in your house.
I definitely should get, once the kids graduate and move out, probably.
It's my graduation present to myself of you two leaving the house.
Yep. A big HD photo of Stella getting electrocuted.
Maybe I'll commission that to get painted or something for you for like a anniversary or some event.
Big velvet painting.
Yeah. I want you to hang this over your guys' bed.
So for those of you that don't know about this scene or Slaughter High in general, we've covered it a handful of times on the channel, and we've talked about it a lot. But it's essentially an April Fool's Day prank gone wrong. Fast forward to a 10-year faux reunion where this kid who was bullied and horribly disfigured takes out all of his bullies. And the kill that is mentioned is probably one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in cinema. But like Evil said, it won't leave your brain. Once you see it, it's there. Stella sneaks off away from her husband to finagle, play around with her high school crush.
Hide the salami.
Yes. And the killer hooks up, I don't know if it's car batteries or what it is, to the bed. But
yeah, like Ford, like die-hard, tractor batteries up to this fucking metal mattress that like Rambo was electrocuted on a few weeks earlier.
And fries them. Literally fries them. Sparks flying out of nipples. Like the best thing that you have ever seen. It is the best kill in the movie, hands down. Most of the kills are tame. but that one makes me laugh uncontrollably. You and I have a total soft spot for it that you just bring it up and you can see both of us just immediately smile. So this scene is a deep cut in and of itself, but it's just it's too fun to not have on my list.
We have to find some way to make a skit out of that on the channel at some point. Maybe not necessarily that, but I mean something where we're doing something very generic and we have some just over the top like sparkler effects, like
watch out for the pyro.
What'd you say? I didn't get that last bit.
Ready to rumble reference, deep cut.
Diamond upside down is a pussy.
Absolutely.
Okay. My number's
15.
15. I am terrible at math, and you are showing me the fuck up today. I can't count backwards very slowly from 20. Oh, but this next one up, on as much as an electrified hanky-panky bed is for you, this is very much, you'll agree, is definitely, oh yeah, you know this is mine. I have a part of my leg tattoo dedicated to this, but mine next one up is Return of the Living Dead, and I'm going to knock his goddamn block off.
You know what? We can't go one whole podcast without bringing up Return of the Living Dead. It's just how it is.
It is exactly that, and man, something about the Clue Gulliger right there, just the, I don't know how else to say it, but like just a man response, like it's just like there's something down this basement, and I don't know what to do, and it's like he just grabs the bat, he's like, just open the door, Spider. I'm gonna knock his goddamn block off with this baseball bat. It's just so basic, so simple, and so like, you know, I've just had enough of this shit. Just open the door and I'll take care of it.
Right. And a part of that also comes, I think, from the fact that Clue joined casting late, right? Is that so he was very playing late. So he was playing it as straight as possible. And a lot of the things that he delivers in that movie are like as deadpan gets, but they are fucking hilarious. And that scene is no exception because, you know, he is a very unlikely hero. He's like a middle-aged dude who doesn't have a fucking ounce of muscle on him, it looks like. But he's just like, he's got that dad toughness. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That may be even better way to describe how it is. Just very bare bones, very like, well, there's a problem. What are we going to do? He's like, well, just the simplest answer, and we'll take care of it. And just they open that door up, and he just clocks that zombie in the head, takes it clean off, and it will never not be the best part of that movie for me. Short of, you know, you have Linnea Quigley's dance, you have Suicide's lines, you have this. I mean, the whole movie, but nothing will ever top Bert with a baseball bat.
Yeah, I can see that, man. And I've seen that movie a million times, and every time I watch that scene, I still am like, how in the fuck did that actor who plays the tar man come out and get that head knocked off? Like, that's not an animatronic. That was not in the budget. You know what I mean? So what's going on? Is he like leaning back and that's a faux head? Like, I can't see it. I don't know how it was done, and I haven't seen any behind-the-scenes footage to show me how it was done.
I think my best assumption is a lot of real super quick cuts of him to just a dummy that they make the look as close as possible, and like just film him whacking it as fast as humanly possible, so you don't get time to see how bad maybe the head looks in comparison to how the actor looks in the makeup and everything. Just all right, go. And I don't even know where the head goes. It seemed like it just
flies past Spider.
Yeah, but it seems like it shrinks. Like it goes from a head normal size to like barely a baseball size, like poof, when it finally lands wherever it lands. Like it doesn't have any weight to it after it leaves the body.
It was
when
probably
he hits it.
Probably a milk jug covered in fucking black tar. Just crushed it.
It could be. There's just something very unique about how it looks, how it's done. That's very, very like, whoa, what? And as much as the electrified bed, that baseball bat to the noggin will never not just be like, that's just awesome. That's just cool. And yeah, shot well.
So moving on to my number 14, which, speaking of things that look amazing still, and sometimes I have a hard time understanding how something can look so good. My number 14 is Pumpkinhead Enters the Church in 1988's Pumpkinhead, the finale.
Three words, man. Stan fucking Winston.
Absolutely. There's something about Pumpkinhead that I'm sure people talk about. I'm sure that there are podcasts. I'm sure there are special features and commentaries. But something about it's like very similar to Jason. Every time Pumpkinhead shows up, there's like this sound effect of like locusts, and there's like thunder and lightning, and it does a really good job of hiding the fact that that's a dude in a suit, you know. And that scene when he enters the church, he's coming after the remaining survivors, and the church is all dilapidated. You've got this beautiful blue light and the cross with the fog coming through it, and he's snarling and he's drooling, and it's one of those things that you need not to have seen Pumpkinhead. People who haven't seen Pumpkinhead can see that 5 seconds and go, that's fucking Pumpkinhead. You know what I mean? Like, they don't need to know about that movie to just be in awe of that creature and of that cinematography in that scene.
Yeah, that should speak volumes, because it's not like everybody knows every classic monster villain. But yeah, I feel you'd probably, if you took like a survey, you'd probably find more people that are like, oh, that's Pumpkinhead. And we're like, oh, what'd you think of the movie? Oh, I never really saw the movie, but I know that scene. I know who that is.
Mm-hmm. And the thing about Pumpkinhead is, since Stan Winston directed it, I'm not speaking ill of the film in an overall capacity, but that movie itself is not that great. But that creature design and some of those kills are expertly done, because it is Stan Winston, but he was wearing a lot of hats on that production. You know, he's designing creatures and directing. And as a first-time director, there's a lot of stuff that could be tightened up, but it doesn't take away from how iconic that monster is. And every time it steps into frame, you feel the presence, you feel the weight, you feel the terror. It's just so well done. It blows my mind.
I'm on the other side of the coin. I actually thoroughly enjoy Pumpkinhead quite a bit. Like, I will rewatch that first movie more than I will any of the other ones, and I really only have 1 and 2 on hard physical copies. But I know I don't even know how many there are. Is there at least, 6?
4. There's 4.
4? I thought they did like a remake, kind of.
Not no? Yet. But Pumpkinhead.
Give it time.
But Pumpkinhead 2 for life. God damn it. Pumpkinhead 2 is as popcorn gets, even though it gets shit on all over the place. But yeah, that's my number 14, is the Pumpkinhead scene where he enters the church, because it's just it's ingrained in my brain.
Yeah, I oddly like a lot of things about that movie. I like Lance Henriksen's work in it. I like the very simplistic story. I like that the I can't think of the character's name that he goes to get the plot rolling, to be like, go dig up this thing, and it'll be your vengeance demon. Just how, like, Mr. Hartley, like, she's even kind of like, there's a lot of like set decoration that looks really very October sensation capturing. Like, very much, it captures that
Absolutely.
time of year. I feel very well. I love Pumpkinhead. Okay. My next up, which Lucky 13.
There you
Lucky
go.
13 on the list. The Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 backstory with Sister Mary Helena inside the abandoned holding facility?
Question mark?
Yeah. This whole place that was shut down in the 40s. Again, this is another, just like the other Freddy one I dropped for Part 6. This one, again, with a lot of the set decoration, lighting, her telling the story, the score, hits all of these nostalgic points for me, because Nightmare 3 is also one we'd also take on like camping road trips. We'd watch. It's one of those movies we'd have on. I just have a lot of memories tied to it, and it's just a very. I always kind of like scenes like that. Like you get a really good kind of creepy, ominous score to it that kind of catches you.
Mm-hmm.
The right kind of lighting and environment, for it's like a campfire tale, and you get a backstory to Freddy Krueger that is not too much. Gives you enough for it. You're in Part 3, so you're gonna get more than you've had.
Right.
But not so much where it's too much of a bright light on the character. You get enough to like you're oddly more creeped out after you hear more, after getting more of an explanation than you are with none.
Right.
Which is not an easy thing to accomplish, is to get more information and to still be creeped out by the villain that you're getting all the information on.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's part to do with the performance of the actress too, because she has such a unique delivery, and
Yes.
in a very I don't want to call her creepy looking, but she does have kind of a very a creep factor to her, and it's done so differently from, instead of them just showing you the flashbacks and stuff a la like Freddy's dead and all of these things. Instead, we just hear her, and the way that she delivers the tale is it's unsettling, so it carries a lot of weight.
And then she just disappears. Wait, sister. And he just looks back, and again, it's just something. 3 really nails it for me as far as I'm a big fucking fan for my own reasons of liking the blue lighting that they use in a lot of the dream sequences, and just the how stuff just looks rusty, beat up, just beat down,
Just forgotten
it's definitely
by time.
Very, very much. It's that, and that's something the wife does urbex photography. So anytime I go with her for any shoots, I'm instantly I feel like I'm in that world right there. I can hear that whole story go back again, just looking at just beat up, rusty, forgotten in time buildings, just stuff laying around. It just has a presence to it that brings me right into that sequence. And we'll be out somewhere looking at something in some abandoned building. I'm like, I really want to go home and watch Nightmare 3 right now.
Yeah, because it elicits a very specific feeling, much like the films you were talking about earlier that have that very October vibe, which instantly transport you to wanting to be around Halloween stuff and carve pumpkins or whatever it may be. Elm Street 3 has a very heavy atmosphere to it, and I know a lot of people say that this is when he started being more funny, but I never really see the the yuck Freddy in this movie, and I feel like that
it's the turning point, but it doesn't go full blast. It's creepy, and we're right on that verge of okay, we're gonna start being funny, and then 4, 5, 6,
right? Yeah.
6 just kind of gets the fuck it, crank it all the way up.
Crank it to Looney Tunes.
Okay.
That's an excellent entry, man.
Yeah, we did not discuss this ahead of time. I have no idea what Raj's list is. He has no idea what mine is. And it totally sounds like we kind of already discussed lists and we're going back and forth. But no, we just know each other so well and know exactly what kind of list things we're going to put on this list. So it's going to be easy to do. I don't even think we're going to have any crossovers. I'm predicting now with half to go, I'm not going to have a crossover.
I'm going to throw a little curveball with my number 12.
Go ahead.
My number 12 is Andy begs for help at the hospital in Tom Holland's Child's Play. Evil and I both kind of have this thing about kids in horror where we're not okay with kids dying and we're not okay with animals dying. It's kind of, you know, and I think that's slowly you're starting to see more horror fans who are like that. They don't really want an animal to die. You know, there's like a website, doesthedogdie.com or whatever. There's, but the thing about the first Child's Play, whether you like Alex Vincent or not, that's a whole different conversation. But when I saw the first Child's Play, I can remember it so vividly. I went to a birthday party in a neighboring town with a friend, and I had seen that Child's Play was going to be on, and I didn't want to go to the birthday party because I knew Child's Play was going to be on TBS, and I'd never seen it. So my mom set the VCR to record it, and our VCR was behind an hour or ahead an hour, whatever, and so the movie got recorded in the midpoint. And when I got home from that birthday party and hit play on that tape, I had no lead up to any of the stuff from Child's Play. All that I was seeing was him in this little tiny hospital room, looking out the window and seeing Chucky climb the steps, and this little kid crying and just say, you know, somebody please help me, Chucky's gonna kill me. And I mean, I was like a 7-year-old kid at the time. So that was like, I mean, baptism under fire. The first minute I hit play on this tape, that's what I was seeing. And it's a heavy scene. And the thing about the Child's Play movies is they just get so fucking blown out of proportion and so campy. And we like the campy stuff. Like Evil and I both really like Child's Play 3. But Child's Play 1, as far as having a heavy scene and having stuff that's tough to cope with, when you're a kid and you watch that kid fight that doll or be afraid that that doll is going to kill him and no adults will listen to him, holy shit. Even to this day I watch it and I'm like, I am uncomfortable.
But wasn't it a great feeling, though, I'm sure, while you were at that birthday party being like, this is cool and all, but man, isn't it going to be awesome? Because I'm at a birthday party now to get to go home and I have Child's Play waiting for me. Mm-hmm.
I still never let my mom live that down, that the VCR was set incorrectly. So I had to wait, and that was the thing. Like back in the day, you know, going to the video store was like a luxury, and convincing a parent to let you get one of those movies was a luxury. So for like 3 years, I had only seen Child's Play from the midpoint, and finally got to see that whole movie, and it doesn't disappoint. Obviously, it's a fucking staple. But that's one scene in particular will always be with me, and it when I watch it now as an adult, I view it from a parental lens. So I'm like, oh man, that mom's got to get there and save that fucking kid's ass. Like, that mom is not doing enough. If I was Andy's parent, I'd be all over that shit,
Just kick it. Fucking doll. Just kick it. Okay. So that brings me to my number 11.
Yes, sir.
And this is one I'm sure as soon as I say it, you can go right in and do the exact quote. But this is another one I saw, went to the theater to see it. We watched the television series. But my next one up is the rant from Demon Knight.
Oh, shit. Ho-dunk, po-dunk, well then there, motherfuckers.
Humans! You're not worth the flesh you're printed on! Fuck this cowboy shit! You fucking ho-dunk, po-dunk, well then there, motherfuckers! All you have to do is give me the goddamn key! and we could get on with our lives. All right, this property is hereby condemned.
I did not really know a great deal about Billy Zane. He was just a background guy at the time, but wow, what a charismatic villain that just oozes fucking cool.
Mm-hmm. That's a fucking understatement, dude.
And I will never forget being like how good he is at being a bad guy. Like that just leveled the whole crowd of him just frustrated and going off on everyone in this house. And William Sadler also in his own way very too cool for school, loner hero guy.
Yeah.
Only could be outshined by Billy Zane out there just losing his shit and making fun of him. That's just something that will always stick with me. Just like a combination of like seeing it in the theater and just that always killing every time we'd watch it on tape at home, cable, whatever it is. We get to that scene, everyone else would just die laughing. And I definitely that's what I would have had Zane sign my copy of Demon Knight if I had gotten to meet him last year. Like I'm curious how many times you get this, but I want you to sign that whole thing on the cover of this Blu-ray because man, nothing quite sums up this movie as that scene for me. It's just funny. It's just funny to watch him lose his shit.
Yeah, and like you said, with that very like I'm so cool, he plays that part so well. Like he never feels threatened. You know how most villains, the tide will start to turn. And they'll start to realize that they've got a battle on their hands. But Billy Zane, throughout that entire movie, is not worried, is not concerned, is not threatened by those survivors in any way, shape, or form. He's smarter than them. You know what I mean? He's just so fucking smooth pimp daddy.
Give me the key breaker for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like. You know that they have been at this for 100 years. That they've fucking squared off a number of times, and Breaker just keeps getting away. But
I remember that being a thing too when we first saw it, of not knowing at the time, at least for the age, not knowing who was the villain and who was the hero between the two,
right?
And not knowing all the way up until that fist goes through the sheriff's face. Like, okay, we know where we are now.
Mm-hmm. The shit has hit the fan. That is such a good movie. That's a fucking great choice, dude.
Well, wait, there's plenty more to go.
There's more. Was that a fucking ShamWow reference? Deep cut? Or is that OxyClean?
I don't know. I just think of the the whitest kid you know, the jizzle.
The jizzle. So I'm going to move back into very familiar territory for you for my number 10. My number 10 influential scene is Linda laughs at Ash in the original Evil Dead. When she's sitting in that doorway.
That's the closest we may get to. I thought about that one. I thought long and hard about that one, but I didn't quite pick it.
That's one of those things that I have a really amazing painting of that I want to get tattooed on me. I love the original Evil Dead for a myriad of reasons, and I've discussed it numerous times on the channel. It's what I watch when I'm not feeling creative. It's what I watch when I need that spark. And Sam Raimi and Rob Tappert and all the guys involved with the original Evil Dead really, really took no money and made one of the most influential horror films of all time. And that scene with Linda, when he thinks she's going to be cool, he puts her to bed or whatever, and then all of a sudden she's in the doorway laughing at him, and he can't take it, so he's like hitting her and telling her to shut up, and she keeps laughing. Now, in retrospect, you and I both smile at it. We go, that's pretty silly. But
not then.
And also, it's silly because we're laughing about it right now. We're talking about it, but you put Evil Dead 1 on at midnight in the dark, and that scene comes on, and it's one of those things where you're like, I probably could turn a lamp on. You know, like it gets under your skin, and that movie ranges so much from like really, really in your face terrifying things to very subtle terrifying things. And I think that Linda scene is on that subtle side, but it's so good and it'll just stay with you.
Oh yeah. It's I came close, and I think I almost put it on my other list as well, but I didn't because I don't know what it was. Probably because I probably had that sensation of like, nope, Raj is probably picking this. I can feel it. I'm gonna go with the other thing.
Raj loves Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Raj loves the original Evil Dead.
You bastards! Why are you torturing me like this? Why? Shut up!
We're gonna get you. Not another peep. Time to go to sleep.
Okay, so that should bring me to
Number 9, sir.
number 9. Number 9. 9. My 9 pick is the, it's hard to narrow down specifically, but I would say the one of many dream sequences in Phantasm when Michael is in the bed and looks up to see the tall man standing over him, and then you have two sets of ghouls grabbing him and holding him down in the bed while tall man's looking out over him. That is nightmare fuel stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say you beat me to it. I was gonna say pure nightmare fuel.
Very much so, and that's a fucking bizarre series. It's not easy to explain. Joe Bob, I think, did the best job of explaining that movie during the Christmas specials. But again, another set of movies that I remember asking my dad. I was like, "What movie scared you?" And he's like, "Phantasm movies. I really like." And I think his pick probably would have been the him hanging from the tree. That is, it's its own creepy sequence that you see throughout the series. They go back to, but as much as I think the Pumpkinhead scene you described in the church is for that, I feel this is the same for the Phantasm franchise, even more than the Silver Sphere is. Just being in a graveyard, waking up in your bed in a graveyard, and then ghouls popping up and grabbing you while tall man just stands over you.
Yeah, and
it's just,
go ahead.
It's a lot of just good, creepy, like at nighttime, bug you out elements to it.
It's a whole different type of jump scare too, because it's not your traditional, gotcha jump scare. It's filled with atmosphere, and I don't know whether it's, I don't know if Don Coscarelli was like on drugs. I don't know if it's a drug-fueled atmosphere, but you know what I mean? It's very otherworldly. It's very nightmare-y, and it's hard to put your finger on the pulse of that movie, but there are scenes, and that one in particular is one that will stay with you. You watch that scene, and it's in your head at 2 a.m. You know, it's in your head when you're walking through your house in the dark, or if you're outside in the dark. And very much, like you said, people who don't even know who, or haven't even seen a Phantasm movie, or don't necessarily know the Phantasm lore, they know what the tall man looks like, and they know who he is, and they can see that scene even though they haven't seen that movie.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably play a game and throw on anybody's review or anyone that talks about this movie anywhere, and at some point that scene will pop up in what they're in the discussion of what they're talking about. But yeah, I mean, there's whole, like, you could go down a whole rabbit hole of trying to decipher exactly what is going on in that movie. Between, it could be this alien figure that's, transforming corpses into mindless, slaves. I've also heard a fan theory where, like, all this is in Michael's head. Like, he's literally at, like, his parents or Jody's funeral, and he's piecing shit together that he's just looking around at him. Like the tall man is like the guy that's presiding over the funeral, and he's looking at graves and stuff, and all this is just going on in his head. So yeah, it's a mind trippy movie.
It's a badass trip.
Yeah, but I mean it's what it lacks in like a very cohesive story. It makes up for tenfold in just really hitting you with top notch theme, score, and visual creep out moments.
100%. All right, so now moving on to my number 8. We're moving back into your and I very familiar, too cool for school territory here. Is Richie Get Back on the Clock from Robert Rodriguez's From Dusk Till Dawn.
How many?
3. This is one of those scenes, and we talked a little bit about this really cool kind of vibe that certain characters give off. And I was 12 when this movie came out, and you're kind of always searching for, we grew up with Schwarzenegger and Stallone, so we're always looking for that like bigger than life, too cool, always got some pun one-liner type shit to say. We grew up in that era, so we kind of were missing that for a while. And it's definitely not horror unless you're talking Evil Dead. There's Ash has a lot of those cool one-liners. And when I saw From Dusk Till Dawn for the first time, the way that the Gecko brothers interact, all the dialogue in the whole film is just so smooth and smart and hip. But that scene in particular, when they get to the titty twister and they kind of, for no reason, which we discussed when we did a live stream on this already, but, for no reason, they rough up the people on the outside and then go in. So they're immediately inviting trouble, but they're so cool and like, yeah, we're just gonna hang out and wait till morning and have our little rendezvous and go our own way. But the way that they interact with one another, especially in that scene, is top notch.
I remember when we rented that movie, the first thing my mom said to me was like, "You cannot let your friends watch this movie."
There's too many titties in this one.
That dialogue, I mean, and it's just that sweet cocktail of Rodriguez and Tarantino, and ooh, is that just that's a taste good combination.
100%. Yeah, they feed off of each other, and they had K&B effects. They've, George Clooney was coming off of ER, I believe, so he was like,
oh yeah,
he was the hot
shit. He was
shit.
still in ER, I believe.
Right, so he was hot shit TV guy, but he got to flip the script and be this just way too hip criminal, and playing alongside a Tarantino who a lot of people criticize his acting talents. But I think in this movie, in particular, it makes sense for Tarantino to deliver the way that he does because he's unhinged.
If I'm going to criticize Tarantino's acting, I'll wait all the way until Django Unchained, and I'll be like, well, I don't know quite about you being an Australian.
Right. So I wasn't sure that if this was going to be on your list, but it's just too cool for me. So I was like, I'm going to put this on here because you and I both have this affinity for this film. We love everything about it. I've got buddies who like it until it becomes a vampire movie. They like that on-the-run movie, but they don't necessarily like the vampire movie. But it hits all the criteria for you and I. Like, covers it all.
It does indeed, and I will piggyback off that and continue that for my lucky number 7 on my list. Too Cool for School, and I'll go the traditional easy route. But I do it for my own nostalgic purposes because, again, I have ties to watching it with my dad, but groovy.
Nice.
All you need to say is he's Evil Dead 2. He's disassembling a chainsaw, making it his new hand.
That sentence alone.
Setting up how he can start it without using his other hand. And what's he got to say about it but groovy? Not necessarily like the coolest thing to say, but it makes it the coolest thing to say because it's not the most expected thing for him to say at that moment. Because it's the most oddball thing to say is what makes it the coolest thing.
Right.
And man, does that just encompass that entire second movie. That first movie is a straight up horror film, and this one is the textbook definition of splat stick.
Yes.
Good time.
And I think that scene in particular is where you're shifting gears and you're turning Ashley into Ash. You know, he's becoming this very unlikely hero, and with one word, with saying groovy, changes the entire tone of the movie. Because, I mean, it's still silly. The stuff that's happening to him is silly, but, you know, he's kind of has, like, nervous breakdowns. He does all the, you know, screaming and all the crying and then the laughing. But when it gets to the point where he replaces his hand, he's stopped being so afraid and he starts to be, like, the man in the movie. You know what I mean? That is the baby step, first step of what he is in Ash vs. Evil Dead, the television series. Yeah, 100%.
All jumps off right there. That's the jump off point to the different path he's going to take from the first movie to the second movie.
Right.
And it's funny because that's that's over an hour into the second movie is when that happens. But yeah, I will always love that. Before it became popular to love that, I will love that because that was just something also I'd watch with Dad and he'd be like, "That's cool."
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, it is cool.
And Bruce Campbell, again, a very unlikely type of hero dude. You know, we were kind of ushering in those Bruce Willis-esque body type heroes, and you know, Bruce Campbell is not like a wicked jacked dude. He's kind of a gangly geek. But he fills those shoes, and it's borderline an action hero, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, definitely totally agree with that one. So, moving on to my number 6, we're going back to 1996 with a genre-changing, reinvigorating scene, and that is, You Don't Know the Rules? From 1996's Scream.
I was going through my head. I'm like, End of Days. No, that was 99. 96. What the hell else came out in 96? I was trying to think something outside of the box, but no, it is the box.
Remix came out in 1996.
Oh my God. The Remix came out the box in 96.
That's true. You know, this is as silly as it is to put this on the list, because I feel like so many other people would do the same. I couldn't make this list in good conscience without putting this on here, because you and I both know we were 12 and horror was kind of shitty in the mid 90s. You know, there was a lot of like crap coming out, and our icons hadn't been on screen for a minute. You know, Jason Goes to Hell and Wes Craven's New Nightmare had passed 2-3 years, something like that.
Yeah, 2 years for New Nightmare at that point.
Right. So we didn't have any icons worth cheering about. Horror was kind of stagnant, and Scream comes along and literally revamps the horror genre. For better or worse, because a lot of movies afterwards just wished they were Wes Craven movies written by Kevin Williamson. But you know, this also put Wes Craven back on the top and made Kevin Williamson like a household name for horror fans. But it felt good. As much as it's you know, so cliche to say, it felt good to see a character who represented us, even if you know, he dressed like a goof and was, Jamie Kennedy. It was still nice.
I mean, we all dressed head shaking ways at some point, but I mean, we're all, if I'm taking the easy route with the Evil Dead 2 one, there's no reason you can't do the Scream one.
I feel like it is definitely a turning point, and that scene in particular is one that just lives on through the horror genre. You don't even need to see the movie. It's one of those things that's so ingrained in the horror genre that if you put a little growl in your voice and say, do you like scary movies? Everyone knows what the fuck you're talking about. Or if you say, you don't know the rules, someone knows, even if they haven't seen the movie.
So, gutted and hung from the goalpost on a football field.
What are we waiting for? Let's go before they cut him down.
Don't you know the rules? What rules? You don't... Jesus Christ, you don't know the rules?
Have an aneurysm, why don't you?
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie. For instance, number 1, you can never have sex. Big no-no! Big no!
I'm a dead man.
Sex equals death, okay? Number 2, you can never drink or do drugs. No, the sin factor. It's a sin. It's an extension of number 1. And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
I'm getting another beer. You want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back.
You see, you push the laws and you end up dead.
All right, so that moves into my number 5.
Yes,
5.
sir.
Yes. So my number 5 pick, another. Well, I guess they're all personal, but this is one that's. I don't even know how to describe the personal level of this one, just because it's goofy, creepy when I was younger, but I'm gonna say it's the reveal of Big Ben.
Oh shit!
You think everything's wrapped up in the movie house? William Katt's got his kid. They're walking out the door. They got that score going, and then sucker.
So good.
You look at it now. You can see the actor's face and mouth moving underneath the jaw. But man, that's the closest I got to being like, that's probably what Skeletor should look like if he was in a fucking real movie. And it was funny, but creepy. And even still, like when we watched it not too long ago, the wife was like, he's kind of like puts you on edge, like when he's going through the house and trying to grab Roger's feet going out the window. Like, yeah, it still has the effect. And I remember when I put that movie on, for whatever reason, I had a hard time just getting through the opening credits, because I'm like, that Manfredini score is so good at being like, I don't know if I can watch this. I don't know if I want to watch this. I don't know if I can handle watching this.
Yep. That boom, boom, boom. I can't do it, but you know what I'm talking about. The music, yeah.
And man, does Big Ben nail the 50-50 thing for me, where like Freddy Krueger is super terrifying, but he's fucking so cool. Mm-hmm. And I thought the exact same thing about Big Ben. I mean, like, that's terrifying, but he looks so fucking cool.
Can't take your eyes off him.
No, and he's got such good lines, too. They're dumb, goofy lines, but like, you're Roger, you're like a little girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it doesn't hurt that it's Richard Mall. And Beekler did that design, correct?
I'm not sure if he did the design. I can't recall on that. I know they'd had a lot of people working on like the all that stuff like at like somebody's backyard. Like they had it in like a factory or like a building, and they had somebody come and be like, you have too many explosive materials here, we're shutting you down. So they had to take all this shit to somebody's like backyard to do all the work for it. I could totally be wrong. I'm gonna put it out there. I don't think it was Beekler that did that, but man, it definitely can't not be an influence for what Jason's New Blood looked like. Like, there's version 1 of Jason the New Blood is Big Ben from House.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then Prison. and then Jason.
Hey, you take prison and house, and bam, you have the new blood.
Right. I'm right there with you with that, man. The introduction of him, he is an icon that never got to be an icon. You know, I mean, he got the one scene, the finale of one movie, and, you know, they didn't go back that way with House 2, so we don't get more Big Ben. That chapter is closed, but, man, what an impact.
He's a great underground horror icon that's starting to get more and more recognition. Like, he's getting put on the T-shirts that the T-shirt companies are putting out. But I mean, still, he's still the icon of House that you can show people that don't know who it is yet. They're starting to, but he's still I think a very iconic underground horror icon that not everyone knows about yet.
Right. Truly a slept-on icon, which takes us to my number 4, which we're going back into a film we've already discussed, and that is Trash is taking off her clothes again from Return of the Living Dead. You knew I couldn't do this list without talking about this scene. I just couldn't, right?
Yeah, exactly.
For those of you that are new, I kind of have an infatuation with Linnea Quigley. For those of you who aren't new, you knew this was coming, just like I am right now. This movie is so ingrained in who Evil and I are, and this scene in particular is so very important to me because Linnea Quigley was the first naked female that I ever saw in my life, and it was this scene from this movie. And so we set the bar really high as like a 6-year-old kid spying on my dad watching this movie with his buddies and seeing this. So it's such a crazy thing in my life that my wife gets so fed up anytime we watch a movie with Linnea. She's like, of course Linnea is in this movie, and of course she's naked in this movie. Because it's just part of this weird little, I'm not going to call it little, this weird thing I have.
I remember when I got the news report that she was going to be in town for one night promoting an indie movie that was local around here. And I messaged you and I was like, hey, Linnea Quigley's going to be in town this weekend. You maybe want to come up and go meet her. And I think there was just a dust cloud from the phone that you had that you're looking at to you being in the car driving the 2.5 hours. I'm going to go meet Linnea Quigley tonight.
Yeah, it was a no-brainer. She's amazing. She is a scream queen, 100%. And to say that this movie didn't leave an impact on me, or her character didn't leave an impact on me, would be a total lie. You know, kind of started that fetish for that punk type of girl, and yeah, I don't know what else to say about it.
There is nothing else to say. It speaks for itself. She speaks for herself.
Mm-hmm.
So bump that into my numero 3 on the list. And as much again, it's kind of weird that you would go with I couldn't not have this on the list. I'm getting ready to do one right back at you. I couldn't do it without putting this on the list. But this is God.
Back to Elm Street.
Back to Elm Street. Now, I started with part 4. That was my introduction to the franchise. But then after watching that over and over again, I was eventually granted permission to watch the tape, which is the same tape that I showed you that has the first 3 that recorded off Cinemax. So my first thing is watching that first one and being like, ooh, that music, it's the same in this movie. The theme is like, oh, it's here. And then you get your first scenes with Freddy, and it's still like, what the fuck is going on with his arms 20 feet long? It's like, what in the hell is this? And then, you're like, and then they shrink back down to normal size, which is fun. It would have been funnier if they kept it at 20 feet and he's like, this is God.
Right? Like wrapped around a tree.
Wrapped around a tree, her underneath his legs and back around his back and then up to his face. But yeah, a weird like visual, and then you get that line, which is a strange line. I'm never quite sure exactly what it means. It's effective. And man, another thing where it's like, I love that alleyway. I love everything about that alley shot. I love the lighting. I love the wet concrete, that trash can lid, that green like wood like fencing that's along the back that he pops out of.
Yeah.
Everything about that's like, all right, this is what you're gonna get. This is your introduction to this character, more or less, for the first time on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's terrifying.
It is. It sets the bar where you're like, if you started with where you should have from Jump Street as from part 1 on, you're like, I don't know what I'm getting into, but it's freaky.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a tone setter. He is, because Robert is so gross in that first movie. And the fact that Tina is like supposed to be like a 16-year-old kid, and you know, she's running around in that shirt and in her underwear, and he's like grabbing her.
I never understood that. Put pants on. Whoever wants to see me wants me to have pants on if I'm going to go outside. I'm putting pants on.
Well, but it's just it's really like seedy and gross. And I know that every time I bring up the fact that Kruger was a child molester, people are quick to jump in and go, child murderer, because, you know, they're unaware of all the stuff behind the scenes that's all there. The subtext is there. It was on the page, but it was on the page, but they dialed it back because there was some real life sick shit happening. Yeah. So
some 1980s Epstein shit was going on then. So
right. So I always let people have their moment in the sun when they tell me he was just a child murderer. But I mean, you know, it's right there on the screen, and it's gross, and you can't watch it and not feel like he's not only going to kill them, but like he's going to hurt them too. You know what I mean? In the nicest way possible of putting that, he's going to hurt them.
You also get Peter a moment when they would tell you that Frederick Charles Kruger was a real guy. Here's his tombstone. Here's the backstory. It's eerily similar to the movie, and I'm like, that's creepy, man. That's tell me more. You get that, and I get the pan cake. I'm like, get out of my face with this pan cake shit. I literally saw that again today.
I get tagged in it like 4 times a day. I swear to Christ.
I've considered like I'd just save it on my phone and send it to you like once a week. Just like, found
dude,
this,
have you seen this?
You.
Dude. So on that note, we're moving on to my number 2,
which is your number 1.
Yeah, which is my number 1 technically. I kind of did this in an order that could be interchangeable, but this is pretty close to a number 1 for me as far as influential scenes, and that is Gage's death in Pet Sematary.
Oh man, you had to go heavy.
This is as influential as it gets for me. It's a game changer because, again, like a lot of the movies on this list and a lot of the stories you've already heard, I saw this movie when I had no business seeing this movie. I had 2 older cousins who would always like hang out with their boyfriends, and they were supposed to babysit me, and the boyfriends would rent scary movies so that they could, fool around with my older teenage cousins. And of course they would just let me watch. Yeah, just lay down on the floor and watch these movies. And I had to have been 6 years old and watching Pet Sematary. And as much as Zelda bothers me, which I think Zelda bothers 99% of horror fans,
she may or may not be on my next list.
Yeah, because she should be number 1. But Gage's death And me being as little as I was, really kind of put things in perspective, because as a kid, you know, you grow up and all you watch is you're watching Ninja Turtles cartoons, and you're watching real Ghostbusters and whatever you're watching, Indiana Jones, and no kids ever get hurt, ever. Like, it's just this thing that you just assume that people only die when they get old, because when you're a little kid, you have this bubble around like your mentality that
that's what old people do. Well, they die.
Right. Like, well, I'm not going to die. I have a long ways to go. You don't take into account of accidents or, you know, anything crazy can happen. And that movie shattered me as a little kid, seeing Gage die, and it terrified me to the bone. And it's still super effective now that I have kids of my own.
Yeah, it's multi-dimensional to you. Now it used to do it one way. Now it has the same effect, but on a whole different level. That's a tough thing to accomplish, but that's kudos. I can see why you put it at a number one, because it's heavy, but man, that's transitional and maintaining its effect.
Yeah, and anytime someone asks me, because as a horror fan, you get asked all the time, like, what's the scariest movie you've ever seen, or what's the
Showgirls? Yeah,
right. Absolutely terrifying. Scream 2 reference, deep cut. But, you know, I mean, I get asked that question so many times, and, you know, I always throw out Pet Sematary, and people are quick to be like, really? Really? And it's, you know, they always have something, what about this movie? What about The Exorcist? Or whatever, you know? And for some people, yeah. But for me, I think horror it's subjective, you know? So it's what you carry. It's what scares you. You can't just blanket horror and be like, this is effective to me, so therefore it should be effective to all of you. It's the situation, it's the circumstance surrounding the scare or the movie in general. And Gage's death is one that I will never shake. I will never ever shake, because at some point I'll be a grandparent and I'll be worrying about grandchildren. You know what I mean? Like, I will take over that Judd-esque role. So
just a loon.
The movie fucking ruined me. So that's why it's my number one or number 2 on the list. So
wow. For my numero uno, I will go the other route, the complete opposite route. My number one did not ruin me, did not damage me, but I mean, you can't get the adrenaline pumping without the terror, good people.
Jason Takes Manhattan reference, deep cut.
And that is my number one, the opening title sequence to Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan. And
wow, that came out of left field, dude.
Yeah, and I put it on that list specifically because every horror movie up to that point was a family event. I was not flying solo. Friday the 13th Part 8, I remember clear as day, being in my room. I had the TV. I was on my own at night, turned it on, got right to the opening of Friday the 13th Part 8, and I was like, okay, I'm going to, like, the challenge. I'm going to sit and watch this whole movie on my own at night, no lights on.
Yes.
And it set the bar for everything to follow in life. And I will never not love, as much as that will probably get the more shit than any of the Friday movies made from everyone under the sun. I will always, always love it, if nothing else, because it was my first on my own. And that opening song, that opening DJ doing that line, just like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I still can see it right now in my head when the title card comes across the New York, Times Square shot. I remember, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this, and I did it. I made it. I made it through that entire movie. Loved it, and man, I will never not think about that. Every time I put that movie on, I've been like, this was my first solo adventure.
Right. You know, and that's the thing about these lists is it's all of these weird personal experiences that we have with movies. And I'm sure that, you know, everybody listening has their own set of 10 or 20 films that mean something so special to them that other people wouldn't bat an eye at, you know. How many people have such a memory of something like Jason Takes Manhattan? The majority of horror fans despise that film, which we get up on our hill and we defend that movie to the death. But that movie also has another weird special place in our hearts as the duo of the Deep Cut podcast, or as, you know, the 3B video guys. It was the first live stream full movie discussion we did with monetization.
It was that. It's got a lot of ties. It's also that was the first venture into trying to do a music video for Fun Get Up. It's something that's always like when you were making the CDs of music from movies. It was always like, well, you got to put that on there, and that's always like our theme officially now. When we put it on when we're actually together and go on a movie hunt, is well, where's Darkest Side of the Night? We got to get that going.
Yep.
So yeah, it's weird how that movie and song and openings just entangles the three of us constantly. Right. And that's the wife's favorite one too. Aside from part 5, that is her favorite Friday the 13th. And like, where else are you gonna find that?
I think it encompasses a lot of our personality too. With it's Kane, so it's got like a very ferocious attitude to it, but it's also very MTV. It's also very, you know, self-referential, but not in a I'm parodying myself type of way. It's a very fun, light take on the Friday the 13th.
Without
formula,
making,
I suppose,
without making Jason like the butt of the joke.
Exactly, and we kind of thrive on that. We love that type of popcorn fun, and that's all this movie is popcorn fun. And like you said, that intro sets the tone. They kind of give you all those flashes of all the locations, and then kick it right off with a pair of titties and Jason smoking 2 people. So
yes, it's my first Friday was part 7, but that was I had to finish the climax of that movie solo. But yeah, part 8, that's the one I'm gonna go from Jump Street to conclusion. I'm not gonna leave the room. Way too young to watch it, probably. In the dark, no lights on. There's a whole atmosphere of like where I was and things around me that goes into that one. A little probably more so than however the other ones I mentioned were the atmosphere in the movie is what shapes things around me. That one's where it goes the other way, where I can remember everything that was around me shaping what was I seeing on the screen. So every time I put that on, it's like, oh, I'm still right there going, all right, I'm gonna do this.
Takes you back to being a kid, simpler times, and that's it's kind of all we can hope for, is these movies to kind of transport us back to simpler times and just have a good time with them and not grow old to be cynical bastards.
in small bits maybe, but not in the
right.
overall.
Right. So I suppose on that note, we should probably get going, because after all, there's a lot of movies out there and somebody's got to watch them. So why not us, right?
There is no more restaurant.